Well, the AFC South is more loaded than ever. And man, it's going to be a battle for the division this year. I believe it might be better than the AFC North. Just my personal opinion. Let's rock. All right, what's going on, guys? My name is Antonio, and welcome back to the All Around Sports Podcast. Today, we are talking about the AFC South. The last two episodes I have done on both the AFC North and NFC North. Now we are on to the South divisions as we are doing the AFC South first. Next episode, I'll be doing the NFC South, which will premiere the day after today. So if you guys do enjoy this video, please be sure to smash that like button down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. But for now, let's get this video started. Before we get started in today's video, today's sponsor is My Life Patch. Now, it's called LifeWave. LifeWave has these little circular patches. What they do is they awaken stem cells in your body to help kill toxins that are in your system. And there's many varieties of them. Some of them can be like put on your chest, some of them can be put on the back of your neck. It can be put on your ankle, your wrist. It can be put everywhere, and it has helped over 90% of people. 90% of people have recorded better circumstances as far as medical stuff goes. But that, of course, is a lot. I'm not going to explain all of it, but I'll just tell you all this right now. The medical patches help, and they will absolutely change your life forever. So, without further ado, let's jump in to today's video. So, first off, we are starting off with the defending AFC South champion, which is the Houston Texans. One of the biggest surprises from last season. Now, the Texans, they were really good last year. No one expected them to be 3-13-1 a season ago to eventually become a 10-7 team, make a wild card game, beat up the Cleveland Browns, and advance to the divisional round where they got beat down by none other than the Baltimore Ravens that would lose in the AFC Championship. But the Texans, they've reloaded in the offseason since. They got Joe Mixon, Stephon Diggs, and Danielle Hunter. And if you ask me, the Texans are more all in than the Dallas Cowboys in Texas right now. Anyways, sorry, Cowboy fans. I had to do it. But anyways, the Texans, they look like one of the most complete rosters in the NFL. And they're going to have a lot of competition. They are going to need to beat out the Jaguars, who they've had their number the last few times. But, of course, they've split the series for the last two seasons. So, of course, we will see what happens. But, man, this is going to be an interesting season for the Texans. So, if we do end up getting if I do go with a floor here, if at worst case scenario, I would give the Texans a total of a 10-7 record, just like this past season. So if this is the case, that's the worst record I can see for them. But if as far as ceiling goes, if all else plays out and they do end up beating Kansas City, which they'll face off against later into the season, if they do beat them, they would project into a top contender if they do beat Kansas City. So at ceiling, I might jolt up a lot of people. I'm going with 14-3. So now hear me out. If the Texans are what we are all thinking they are, which is a top Super Bowl contender. I could see them going 14-3, maybe potentially winning the number one seed if they do end up winning their division. Of course, the winner of this division could ultimately be the one seed because it's heavily stacked this year. The AFC North is loaded and stacked. So, of course, we'll wait and see what happens. But I have the Texans going 14-3 as the ceiling, 10-7 as the floor. Now let's move on to the next team. Next up is a team that had a late collapse last year, the Jacksonville Jaguars of Duval County. Now, the Jaguars, I happened to visit the outside of their stadium. It is really nice out there. I like especially the two eyeballs looking down on the part that I video clipped. Be sure to go check that video out if you want to know exactly where I was at the stadium. But anyways, the Jaguars, they had a late season collapse that they ultimately still have nightmares about. And ultimately got beat out by the Tennessee Titans at the last game to knock them out of the playoffs, giving the division to the Texans. But man, that was pretty. I don't know what the word is for that. But anyways, the Jaguars, they are reloaded up more this season as they went out there and got Stephon. I mean, not Stephon. He went to the Texans. Gabe Davis. They also got Eric Armstead and Darnell Savage, which are two really good pieces for defense, and then also along with a good offensive weapon for Trevor Lawrence, which many questions were still rising up on how much money he got based on the based on how he's not made an AFC Championship appearance yet.
Huh?
But this is a year that I think Trevor Lawrence has to prove himself because when you're getting paid that much cash, you need to be able to show up. And with all that cash that like Joe Burrow's making, this is a big season for Trevor Lawrence. He has to have a breakout season, and I think he will. But as far as floor for this team, if all goes at worst case scenario, I could see this team going 8-9. If at worst case scenario. And best case scenario is they are one of the best teams in the NFL and go 13-4. So I would be able to. I think that the Jaguars are going to be back in contention from last season. They're going to be out with something to prove to the NFL. But the Jaguars, this team is going to be dangerous. So I have them as 13-4 as their ceiling, 8-9 as their floor. And for now, let's move on to the next team. Next up is a team that I would consider as a sleeper team if Anthony Richardson can stay healthy. The Indianapolis Colts. Now, the Colts, after Anthony Richardson got hurt midway through the season last year, Gardner Minshew almost led them to the playoffs, which is he's now with the Las Vegas Raiders, which I'll be talking about the Raiders in a later video when I go over to AFC West. But anyways, the the Colts they reloaded on a few pieces, including in the draft by selecting Litia Latu from UCLA with their number 15th overall pick right before the Seahawks selected Byron Murphy. But man, this is going to be an interesting year if you're a Colts fan. This is going to be a big time show because the Colts almost made the playoffs last season. And if they keep Anthony Richardson healthy, we saw glimpses of his peak when he was playing against some of the divisional opponents. And I don't know about anybody else, but I was pretty surprised on how close he was able to make it with the Jacksonville Jaguars in week one. I was pretty shocked on how close it was. I was expecting the Jaguars to win, which they did. I was expecting a blowout, but the exact opposite happened. It was pretty close, surprisingly. But this Colts team, if at worst case scenario, Anthony Richardson gets hurt again, Joe Flacco comes in from the couch again, and this team goes a total of 7-10. If at worst case scenario, Best case scenario, they are one of the best sleeper teams in the NFL. I could see them going 10-7 because the Colts, they have the offense to do it. Their defense is getting stronger with the addition of Latia Latu to pair up with DeForest Buckner. This defense is going to be really good next year, and they're going to be really competitive with every single opponent they play, including the Packers and many others. But don't be surprised if the Colts are in the playoffs. So their ceiling I have as 10-7. Their floor I could see at 7-10. Now let's move to the final team on this list. Last but not least, you got Will Levis and the Tennessee Titans. The Titans had one of the sneaky off seasons this past year. They not only went out there and got Tyler Boyd, Calvin Ridley, and also along with what was his name? Hold on a second. They also got L'Jarius Sneed to add on with DeAndre Hopkins. Now, L'Jarius Sneed, we all know as making the Cam Chancellor type of play against the Ravens, which kind of gave me vibes of Cam Chancellor, if I'm being honest. But the Titans, I consider them a sleeper team. And they also got Tony Pollard as well, who left the Cowboys because he knows the Cowboys ain't going anywhere as far as like Super Bowl or anywhere higher than that. Sorry, Cowboy fans. I just had to. Okay. Sorry, not sorry. But anyways, the Titans, I believe, are a sleeper team because they have a sneaky offense. You have DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley, Tyler Boyd, Tony Pollard, and also good offensive line. Although they did lose Derrick Henry to the Baltimore Ravens. Which that will be a key loss, but I think Tony Pollard will fill in the gaps pretty much. But if I had to predict a record for this team, if all worse and I end up being wrong, I could see him going 5-12. Because if that does happen, and I'm wrong, which I would not be surprised, but Will Levis would not be ready for the next season. But at best case scenario, they end up being a sleeper team and maybe potentially sneaking into the playoffs. But I'm going to say 9-8, the team that my Hawks made last year, the record my Hawks made last year. But this one will be relatively interesting. This storyline will be interesting to watch because they'll face off against Miami again, where they made that incredible 3-minute comeback, which still shocks me to this day. But anyways, now that those teams are out of the way, it is time for my standings prediction. All right, so first up, coming in last place, I might regret this. I'm gonna put the Tennessee Titans in last place because even though Will Levis is a top quarterback, was a surprising quarterback last year. I don't think he's gonna grow that much, but if he does, that would be insane. But next up in third place, I would put the Indianapolis Colts in third because like last year, they were in this spot and had a chance to go and advance to the playoffs with a win against the Texans. But they ended up losing that game, so they were ousted from the playoffs. I think it's going to be a similar circumstance this year, but of course, we'll see what happens. And then second place. Oh my gosh, this has really torn me up because the Texans have a lot of expectations on them this year. Then again, the Jaguars are right up there too. Oh gosh. This is probably the hardest decision I've ever made. Oh my goodness. In the end, I'm gonna go with my gut here. Second place is gonna be the Texans because Even though CJ Stroud showed up last year, I don't think they're going to repeat as division champions again, which I would not be surprised if that ended up being the case. But with Stephon Diggs, with his locker room problems that he had with Buffalo, we don't know if that's going to transfer over into the Texans locker room. So that means that the Jaguars end up winning the division at number one. But this team is gonna be really good. Their defense is gonna be stacked with Josh Allen with which he actually renamed his name to Josh Hines Allen, which kind of sounds pretty cooler if you ask me. But of course, we all know there's one Josh Allen, one Josh Hines Allen. But to recap, the Jaguars at one, Texans two, Colts three, and the Titans coming in at last place. Let me know in the comments what you guys think down in the comments section below. What team do you guys think is going to win the AFC South this year? And give me a standing list if you can. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please make sure to smash that like button down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. Next time, we will be going over the NFC South, which will happen on the next day at 2 p.m. Eastern. So be sure to tune in for that for the premiere. And until then, I'll see you all in the next one. Ciao for now.